Hello, Internet. Thank you once again for joining me to talk all things vertical drama. I am joined by a truly amazing actress who was in one of the first reviews I got really excited about when I set up my Instagram account, which is the Heiress Blacklisted Her Husband. And I am obsessed with that vertical. And this is the leading lady herself, Alessia Medina. So I'm going to
Hi.
ask Alessia to give a little introduction of herself to you, the Internet.
Hi, I'm Alessia. Sometimes I go by Fall, especially with my cosplay stuff. Yeah, I've been acting since I was about 7 years old. And since 16 professionally. And it's only been in the last, oh gosh, like I think it's been just under a year now since I started doing verticals, which is so crazy because it's been an absolute whirlwind of, just working on some really fun projects with some really cool people, which has just been like really fun. I think coming into it absolutely not even knowing the format. Like not even really knowing that there was a whole industry behind this. It was, kind of uh just kind of like pitched to me as like oh yeah, this is just for like, we're just shooting a vertical thing for like TikTok. And I was like, okay, cool, like I can do that, like, no problems. But then to see that, oh my god, no, there's this huge industry that's behind this right now, and it's just growing rapidly, and it's just like, whoa. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of what's brought me here.
So I'm going to ask the question because not everyone will know. What country are you born, raised, and living in?
Oh, okay. So I was born, raised, and still live in Sydney, Australia.
Okay, because sometimes people who don't know the accents will wonder.
Honestly, even then, I get asked quite frequently, even from people who live here, like where I'm from. I think I've got a bit of a twang or a bit of an accent to my speaking voice, and I think that's just because like I grew up in a very multicultural family where where they learn English at like, different places, different schools. And so I think like my accent's just a little bit like there'll be something where people feel like, oh, that sounds, where are you from? I've been here my whole life.
I love that you're a child of the world. That's a really good answer. Child of the
I mean,
world.
I think a lot of people from in Australia now kind of have a very similar migrant story. I think because Europeans settling here is only been very recent in the last couple of 100 years. So I think most people here kind of have a story of yeah, like an immigrant family, either, during they came during like, the gold rush, or, or maybe even the first fleet. Some people can trace their family lineage all the way back to that, or, after World War, II and one. So
Mm.
there was some mass migrations to Australia during those periods. Even my family, like both of them, had to make the decision whether or not they were going to fly to Australia or the US. And apparently, for my dad's family, it was a catalog with just like Bingley furniture, or
Ooh.
something along those lines, where they just saw the prices and just like all this beautiful, like, like dishwashers or like, old washing machines and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And they were like, oh my God, this is so like, so luxurious.
Wow,
So
I
they
love
came to
that. But I love the
Australia.
idea as well because obviously it's all pre-internet that they had a catalogue and you would look
Yeah,
through
someone
and
just
go,
went to
this
Australia,
page
came
sells
back,
it.
and was like, I brought some snacks from Australia. I brought a catalog. And like, that was what was like, oh, okay, yeah, we need to travel there. That looks really nice. I mean, considering the fact that they were living in Argentina during like a dictatorship, like that's already a good enough reason to want to leave. But
Yeah.
it was definitely the the catalog that was like, oh yeah, this is a deciding factor. We're going to Australia. So it's like, had that catalog not been, I don't even know if I'd exist. So
I love it. That's such a good origin story. Um, so can I go back to you as a child? What were your favourite books, movies, TV shows? What were the ones that kind of you obsessed over and
stuck
lived in?
with.
Yeah.
I was a kid where I was one of the only people in my friend group who didn't like Harry Potter or wasn't a huge fantasy nerd.
Mm.
I was very much into spy novels. I was very much into history novels. I had a whole phase as a kid where I was really into astronomy. I got like a telescope. I learnt, all about the planets. And then I've moved on from that onto being like obsessed with like, World War II and like the political, like, and mind you, like I was like under around 10 years old when these were like
Mm.
my special interests. So I was like always a bit of a kid that kind of like had like out there interests. I
Mm.
guess maybe for some people that feels totally normal, but for me like that was kind of considered weird at the time.
I think
So the books
the
I
Harry
loved were
Potter
like
thing in
history
particular, because it
books.
was just an assumption. Well, every child likes Harry Potter. It's like, well, of course not every child. Well, children
No,
have different tastes.
I think it was honestly I think I can pinpoint an experience that kind of turned me off it, and it's entirely my thing. Like I mean now I'm
Mm.
kind of like, well, you know, I've got no like skin in the game, so like
Yeah.
I'm obviously not taking the fallout as bad as some people are. But yeah, no, I think as a kid, I think I was in like year one or something, and my mom gave me one of the later books to read, and I hadn't read any of the first ones. I don't know
Mm.
why I was just given this like later one to read, and it was a bit too out of my reading ability at that time. And I think as like a proud child who was like, in her class was like known as like, voracious reader, I could read like, really, like, like we had like these little books that we had to like read. And then if we like were able to read that box of books, we could move up to the next box of books because they were like, slightly harder and all that kind of stuff. And so like I prided myself on being like, in the top box. I read all the hard books, like blah, blah. And then the fact that I couldn't deal with like these fantasy words and I couldn't deal with, and like, the magic system didn't make sense to me. And so I think I was just like, I hate this just because I didn't understand it. But like for me as like, a 6-year-old being like, I hate this now and I'm never going to interact with it. 10 years later at 16, I finally read the full series and I like it. I like it. It's not bad. I think there are flaws, but like, it's not bad. I think past me should have given it a chance.
That's so interesting. So, okay, I used to be a bookseller. I spent 18 years selling books, and a lot of it was as a kids bookseller, so helping kids. And that was the biggest thing that turns kids off. If, even someone like you who's a voracious reader is just being given something that's too far ahead. It's like if you pitch it too, you've lost them. You've lost them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just so
And I
interesting that
think
you
also
say
I
that.
just like, for me, it was like magic wasn't realistic enough. And I liked things that felt realistic, like as if they could actually happen.
Yeah.
And so for me as a kid, it was like, I loved the Cherub series.
Oh,
So,
I've met Robert Muchmore. He's
oh,
awesome.
have you?
He's basically just like a grown-up kid. He's chaotic, and he's just a big
I love
schoolboy.
that.
They are so good, those books. Right, if people haven't read them, they're a load of school kids as spies, but like gritty. So it's actually like, what would it actually be like? So like when they're training, like someone breaks their arm and it's like, they become friends with the kids of the drug dealers, and
Yeah.
it's so good. Sorry.
Yeah. And then I
Yeah.
think like my like closest foray into like that time into like fantasy was kind of more like speculative fiction, so like Hunger Games.
Mm.
Which is like, it's not outside the realm of things that have happened and could happen. It's more just a sense of like it's like, oh, an alternate, reality type thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like those are the books I loved. The movies I loved watching. I mean, I loved Treasure Planet. I loved Atlantis. I loved Road to El Dorado. Like those were the movies that like I was always wanting to watch as a kid. So yeah, so I mean, like, as a kid, yeah, I guess for me it was like tangible stuff. I wanted to enjoy that, and then it's really funny because now I'm like, for the last 5-7 years now, I've been, part of this web series that's all based on Dungeons and Dragons, which is fundamentally, Lord of the Rings, kind of based. Like, it's based on a lot of the lore set up by the Lord of the Rings universe. And so it's just such a fun, like, I mean, I've had to catch up on so many nerdy things. Like I had to watch the extended version of Lord of the Rings, and I had to watch like, all the Star Wars and all that kind of stuff to like finally get my nerd cred back.
I get that. It's like you're not allowed in. And you're not getting away with the directors, the short cinema ones. It has
Oh
to
my
be the extended
God.
ones.
And then everyone wants to tell you, like, as soon as they know that you don't know all of the lore, then it's like, I need to show you all the movies, and then I need to tell you incessantly all the facts that I know about the movie while it's playing. And it's like, I love that. Like, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love that. But also, oh my God, this is like it's like 24 hours worth of film, I think. Like, basically.
But I love that, and also kudos to you for putting that time in and learning it all. So I have to ask, so you're already acting and kind of enjoying it, and obviously there's this like huge passion for stories. When you left school, were you straight into acting, or were there other options that you could have followed or spent time with?
So this is really funny. So I'd actually started acting professionally while I was still in high school. And then I had a period of school where my grades were starting to slip, and it's funny because it was one of those things where I was a really good student. In fact, because I was a really good student, the teachers stopped paying attention to me. And then we got free laptops. And then once I was given free access to the internet at all times, it was hell to try and get me to actually want to re-engage with school again. Like when you have a teacher that says, hey, I'm going to stop like calling on you when you put your hand up because I want the other kids to have a go. It kind of killed any like motivation in me to like want to put my hand up or like so I just kind of completely disengaged, and so it was around this time that they were like, hey, we're going to, so in Australia we have what's called the Higher School Certificate, the HSC, and so in order to graduate from high school you need to have completed that, and there are a few different pathways you can go through it, but most people like who go through the school system kind of complete it through year 12. Whereas for me, I was put on a plan to complete my HSC over 2 years, accelerated in a couple of grades, so that I could finish half of it early, and then I'd finish the second half of it with the rest of my cohort, in a way to try and like re-engage me back into school, and stuff like that, which is really cool. I was really, really thankful for that. Um, and I think it was also around this time that I was starting to have feelings of like acting is a passion. It's such a huge passion. I was performance captain of my school. Like that was one of the school representative type people. And I was in every play and musical that we had. Like I did Lumiere from, Beauty and the Beast, and that was one of my favorite roles I ever got to play, just because like how fun it is to just, get given a character where you can just be comedic and funny and big and loud. And so like I really thrived in that environment, but I was also kind of battling with the feelings that I think as a kid, a lot of your dreams are kind of met with that same like thing of just being like, oh, that's really sweet, like, but soon you'll get realistic. And so like, even from like as a kid, like even when I was starting professionally, people were still like, oh, how hard acting is. Like a lot of people who get into acting, fall out because of the drugs and the drinking and a lot of stuff was getting projected onto me, I guess, to say that like this isn't, realistic. And so I kind of felt that I needed to think about a realistic plan B, or backup plan, I think was what I kind of said it at the time. And so I did actually end up because, with HSC, because I was doing it over the 2 years now, that also then meant I was going to have to catch up with a curriculum I wasn't familiar with, because that time was when they were switching the curriculum. So I wasn't even doing the same curriculum as my cohort. Um, and so it just became a lot. And I was like, I think I need to just step back from acting. I need to, think about, what I'm actually seriously going to do, because I don't want to be working, like hospitality and I already was working in hospo, but I don't want to keep working in hospitality or retail for the rest of my life while I'm trying to I'd want something else, like another option. And so I went to university for, I think what it was cross-cultural communication. So a communications degree essentially. Um, and I did really well for a year, but burnt out, dropped out of uni, went to work for a year, worked in advertising in an illustration design company where I met with clients, and got them to use our illustrators and in-house, animators. And this was about 18. And then 19 was when I got contacted to be part of the show, which is where this plushie comes from, actually. It's actually my character on the show.
That's got to be a life goal when you have your own plush.
It's pretty cool. I've got two of them now, actually, because we did 2 runs. So this was an older season look. And then this is the newer season look. And the little fireballs are detachable, which is super cute.
Oh. And would you say being part of that has probably been the biggest change and biggest part of your life?
Yeah.
Open doors and...
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Like, I would say that, there are a couple of points in my life where, because when I went to university, I was actually part of a acting troupe there as well, and a theater there. And I remember my mom just coming into my room being like, "Are you going to go audition for it?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't know these people. This is my first year here. Maybe I should be focusing just on my studies. Acting can wait. I don't even know why I thought that. Acting can wait, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, promise me you'll go. And I was like, all right, I'll go. And so I ended up going. There was a play that they were casting for. It was a 3-hour play called August Osage County. And yeah, and they were casting for the role of Barbara, who's the elder sister. And they had gone through a few rounds of auditions and hadn't been able to find someone. And someone who was already in it, who knew me, was like, just give it a go. I think you could do it. And so, yeah, I went in and I auditioned for it and I got the role, and it was an incredible experience. It also led me to meet a director who came to see the show, who then helped me write and then directed and produced a short film that we did together, and we took that through some short film circuits. And so it's kind of been one of those things where it's like acting's kind of never too far away. I've every time that I've kind of been like, okay, maybe I need to pull back, maybe I need to think about something else pulls me back in. And, so it was, doing, acting classes when I was a kid. It was, doing some roles for TV and stuff when I was a teen. It was, going back to this troupe in university. It was getting called in to do this show, when I was dropped out of university, was no longer in contact with that theater troupe, was just like, okay, maybe I need to figure out my life again. Got contacted for that, came back into it. And then after this was starting to wrap up, because this was around COVID again, I was like, okay, this is wrapping down. I don't have an agent. I'm not represented. I don't know how else I'm going to keep finding jobs. And then I got contacted to do a vertical. And then that's now started up a whole other fresh, influx of work. And it's just been I don't think I can escape it. I think it is just a part of who I am and what I want to do. And I think I've been so lucky that I've been surrounded by amazing people who recognize that and were willing to give me a chance to show what I could do. And I think that's kind of been the best part of this entire journey, was just along the way, just, being helped by others and helping others. So yeah, I think, to answer your question in short, I just love it. And I guess I've always needed to kind of do this.
And see, you're a dream, because you set me up now perfectly with the next question is, so what was your first vertical? How was that experience? My first vertical was Hollywood Dreamboat. I think that was initially what it was called when I was given the script. And then I think it got changed to My Contract Husband Falls to Me. That was a vertical I did with, I did the script read with an actor who was meant to be my co-lead for that. And then he ended up dropping out, and I met my new co-lead the day that we were doing makeup and costume fitting. So it was very much just oh, hi, you're new. I didn't know that he'd been replaced, and hello, you're now, my partner for this. And so
that was a really fun experience. That was the first vertical I'd done, so I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I was very lucky that my co-stars had some experience, and so they had taken me aside and was just like, don't worry. This is like, it's very, very it's very, very fast paced. You need to just know how to listen, follow instructions, and you'll be fine.
Oh.
And that was amazing. Like, I had an incredible experience. Really loved the people I got to work with. I'm still in contact with, the people I worked with on that vertical. So yeah, that was my first vertical, was that one. And it was lovely. It was really, really fun.
So I had to ask, do you get kind of, because people have said this before, that there's obviously this great community and you kind of, as someone new comes in, they're like, right, this is what you need to know about how it works. Do people kind of prep you of, look, these are kind of soapier storylines, it is a bit more play it big? Are you kind of given that, or is it almost self-evident from the script?
I mean, look, like it's self-evident from the script. The script begs for it. The way I've kind of like told this to people is I'm just like, look, like you're always like, as an actor, you're always going to be given scripts that don't give you much or give you like, it's just confusing. It feels like, I don't know how to read this. I don't know how to portray this in a way that feels grounded or natural. And so like kind of thinking of this more as like telenovelas, Bold and the Beautiful, Home and Away, Neighbours, thinking about the fact that this is meant to be, soapy, dramatic drama for people who want to watch something that's, for fun, for entertainment value. They're not necessarily looking for a, deep, intriguing storyline in the sense of, there's, not much that's hidden from the audience. Everything's kind of
Hmm.
very, plainly set out for everyone so that, at any point, if you were to tune out and tune back in, you kind of know what's going on. Or should you catch like, a scene while you're scrolling on TikTok or whatever, you can kind of grasp the context of what's
Hmm.
happening just from watching that one episode. And so it's like, yeah, I'm very much a person where it's just like, look, if that's the brief, I want to hit the brief. I'm
Yeah.
not here to try and be like, oh, this is lowbrow or, like, oh, because, I think it's so silly when just because like a specific demographic likes something, to then be like, oh, that's not real or that's not valid. I think a lot of the time that's just kind of like that's what's been said about every format as it's come out. Like people were saying that about books because how could books ever replace the art of the spoken word? And then with phones, like how could phones ever replace books? And it's just this is always going to keep happening.
Yeah.
So for me it's just kind of like this is the next step in the evolution. I do hope that I do hope that, things become a bit more varied. I think my one biggest critique would just be like, I'd love to see more variation in storylines.
Mm.
I'd love to see more variation in characterization. I'd love to see, more girls love and supporting each other rather than always being pitted against each other. So like for me that's kind of my only real critiques of it. But I mean the stuff I've seen and the stuff I've seen coming out from other studios as well, it's just like, okay, cool. Like we're venturing into different territories now and it's pretty cool to see.
That's so interesting that you say that about the girls' friendship, because I spoke to an actress the other week and she was saying, like, I've never had a girl best friend. It's like, I never get a girl
Oh,
best friend in a vertical. It's like sometimes you get a gay best friend and that's amazing. Like, we
yeah,
love that. But I'd
yeah,
also love a girl best friend. How
yep,
nice would that be? Because you're right, a lot of it is very much, apart from the central characters, everyone set against each other and trying to tear each other down. So,
yeah.
and
There's a
there's a
lot of
lot of
jealousy. There's a lot of like, I mean, I guess the best way that I could like put it is that it's very reminiscent of women who like this idea of like women pandering to the patriarchy
mm,
because in a way it benefits them.
mm,
Like and for me like that's kind of something I'm fundamentally kind of just like icked about. Like for me that's kind of just like a let people live how they want to live. Like, we don't need
yeah.
to always portray it one way. Um But yeah, no, I definitely would love to see more femme varied representation. Like I mean like I say that, and then there's also like a part of like I'm not sure if sometimes verticals are the best format for necessarily speaking about some of these things. Like I've seen
Yeah, they
verticals where
don't
there are people
necessarily
who, yeah, they don't necessarily have
have
the
the
tact.
nuance or the
Yes,
to be
yes,
able to deal with slightly bigger topics. Yeah.
yes. And there have definitely been times where I've had to like pull a director aside and just be like, hey, look, if you're wanting the audience to take something away from like this, or if you're wanting to portray, I'll just say it straight out. If you're wanting to portray someone as a hero or as like, you know, a someone who's meant to, who's fundamentally good, and, you know, is the hero and the protagonist, blah, 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 it's probably not a good idea to have them come across as taking advantage of someone who's under the influence,
Mm,
because there are lines that they'll sometimes put in where it's like, I get that it's trying to elicit, you know, that kind of feeling of, you know, of passion and lust and not being able to hold back and stuff like that. But having your protagonist, but there are ways to go about that without necessarily having your protagonist being like, oh, you started this and I won't stop. To
mm,
someone who's under the influence and unable to consent.
yeah.
So it's like there are things where I'm just like I'll pull the director aside and just be like, look, if the idea of this scene is to portray that this is a good guy and we want the like, you know, the female lead to end up with them, maybe we shouldn't have them saying something that comes across as very, very predatory. We could possibly come up with a different alternate line that kind
Mm,
of portrays the thing of like, you know, oh, okay, I'm getting into this too, and I want you as well, but isn't like I'm going to be taking advantage of you in this vulnerable state.
mm,
Um, so yeah, so like there are definitely things where I'm like, I want to see more representation, but I think also we need to be wary of stepping into topics when we don't have the necessary basis or like support
mm,
to be able to talk about those things without necessarily like just adding to issues.
yeah.
So, like, you know, for instance, if there were to be a storyline about, you know, LGBT couples, you know, gay or lesbian, or even trans characters, I would want to make sure that someone in that room has actual experience with those things so that things are being dealt with respectfully, like
Mm,
with nuance and just like the actual, you know, realism that it kind of deserves. Um, just in the same way that I wouldn't expect like a whole room full of men to be able to write a valid, like, you know, femme experience.
yeah.
I wouldn't expect some, like, you know, a bunch of cis or straight people to be able to write authentically without some sort of input from someone who's
Mm,
actually experienced that. That's not to say that no one can write stories that they don't experience themselves, because I think that's too far the other way. I think that
mm,
there needs to be a middle ground of, if you don't have personal experience there, you should definitely be engaging with people who do.
yeah.
Uh, just so that you're not also just like engaging in like gratuitous stereotype or, you know, engaging in harmful, you know, rhetoric that can actually, you know, cause damage to communities. So,
That's
yeah,
such a
that got
brilliant
really
point.
serious, but like,
No,
yeah,
it's,
essentially,
it's a really, really
essentially.
valid point. It's that thing, isn't it, of just, I always think it comes back to just not assuming that you know everything about everyone and being willing to listen to other people's point of view and experience. But also, I want to come back to Heiress Blacklisted Her Husband. I think that's one of the reasons that's so good for me, is probably because of that work I suspect you would have done and with your co-star Alex, because there's been variations of that story. But this one is brilliant, I think, because you did all that work. So your character is so empowered. She takes control of the story, and the way that Alex plays his characters, he stops it becoming too toxic. And it is always like,
Mm,
this is a man who's tried to do his best, but has made a mistake. And as soon as he realizes it, is absolutely devastated and
yeah.
gets what he's lost. And I think that's possibly due to the combination of you and your director, Sky Dominic.
Yeah,
Could
no,
you
Sky
share
was amazing to work with.
stories
Yeah.
about that? Because it's such a good show. So anything you'd like to share, I would be grateful to hear.
Oh, I mean, it was funny. playing, because I think the first character I played was, young, unwed, just like young generic girl. Whereas with this one, it was like, no, you're like fully divorced. And I grew up with my parents divorced when I was about 2 years old, and then my father went through another divorce in my later teens, and so like there was an element of filming this where there were times where I was just like I remember the like I remember the tension. I remember the feelings of being unable to communicate effectively anymore because all the barriers have been broken down. There's just so much miscommunication and so many different. I think what happens sometimes is that people say the same thing, but they mean different things. When I say something like a tree, your mind might conjure what you think a tree looks like, and it might be different from my tree. Like I might think of an oak, and you might think of like a pine tree or something along those lines. But when we aren't able to have when we're not able to have that communication anymore, when that starts to break down, it's really it's like an interesting point to like explore a character where it's just like there's so many layers of misinformation, there's so many layers of misunderstanding that we can't even have a proper conversation anymore because the words that we're using to refer to different things aren't meaning the same thing. So like, that conversation where we're outside on the porch at the party, at my mother-in-law's party, and uh I'm saying like, you care more about her baby than you care about me. And what I'm thinking of is the fact that you care more about the fact that you've gotten this, girl pregnant, you've wrecked our vows, you've betrayed me, blah blah blah, and you've gotten her pregnant, which is huge because like that was a big thing for us. And like there's so many layers of like betrayal there. And then for him, he's thinking like that's my brother's child. Um, that's something that like, yeah, I have to look after. I have to, I like there is importance there. And I mean, I'm not entirely sure why there was so much secrecy in fact in telling in telling Giselle straight up, hey, that's my brother's baby. But like I'm guessing that there was some, reason for that. There was some reason for letting that kind of straight on or like not clarify that point, I guess. But then, like I said, like when communication has gone so far, it's like
I assumed it was like in my marriage when there's been miscommunication, and it's normally like my husband's like, "Oh, I told you," and it's like I have no memory of you telling me that, and probably told me as I was like watching a vertical or doing something else. So I have this vision it was like that of his mentioned, but Giselle was doing something
possibly,
else. It didn't hear,
possibly.
got lost in the wind. He's like, "But I told you," and I'm like, "You
I
never did."
mean, yeah, exactly. Like it could have been anything. And so like I think that's kind of what's fun about sometimes these verticals is that they don't explain everything. They definitely like to make everything super clear that you're seeing on the screen,
Uh,
but they don't necessarily explain the how is that possible? Because like,
uh,
you always find people just like flying in with like, like Deus Ex Machina information at the last second. And it's just like that you were asked for that information like 10 minutes ago, like in screen time, like you were 10 minutes ago, and you've suddenly got like a whole read on this person, their like, DNA and like that's crazy shit. Like that doesn't happen in real life. But I mean, it allows us as like the actors, like also to just be like, all right, yeah, we can make up like what that was. We can decide make decisions for what that was and then play on that. So, things like a look I might give him of frustration because it's like we've had this conversation so many times and I still don't understand what's going on. Um, so it's like you can kind of pick and choose like how you want to, and then collaborating that obviously with your co-stars so it all makes narrative sense. But yeah, there is a little bit of that freedom as well.
um, so I have to ask, 'cause obviously the first few roles you've done verticals are kind of around the billionaire world,
Yes.
and then you got to go all werewolf.
Yeah.
which
That's really
must have
fun.
been quite exciting for you, given obviously your cosplay. Just like, oh, I get to do. I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously it's CGI. You don't actually get to go for a wolf. How
Yeah.
was it? Were you excited to get to do a werewolf one?
Oh yeah, it was so much fun. Like, I mean, of course, I was like a little apprehensive. I'm like, I have no idea what the CGI is gonna look like. Like, it could go from anywhere from like, looking like really good to like just being like a little JPEG that they just kind of like, just kind of animate on screen. Like, I wasn't sure what it was gonna be like going into it, so I was like, okay. But it was one of those scripts where I read it and I was like, okay, I can see this. Like I can see how it's going to look. I can see how, like I can see what the story is doing. It was probably one of the more fleshed out and fun scripts that I also have gotten to read for these as well. And so yeah, I think yeah, for me it was so much fun just being able to be like, oh, I don't have to act like super mature. I can actually be a bit more over the top, dramatic,
Mm.
a teenager, emotional, and I think that's always fun, to kind of just play around with it. And also, to kind of go back and forth between the more mature roles and the more, youthful roles. Like that's really fun for me because I love being able to practice different range, like different things. Like I get to do that a lot with my other work. I've been able to be an evil witch. um you know uh I've been this like pink demon tiefling that loves fireballs, like this little one back here.
Yeah.
So like I've already had a lot of fun playing around with different things, so I think that for me this is actually quite refreshing in a little way because I haven't done like a lot of romance or a lot of like those sorts of storylines.
Mm.
So for me this is kind of just like oh, I'm just living out like like a tween fan fiction dream, I guess, is like the best way I could put it. It's like it feels like I'm living out like a fan fiction writer who's like 13 years old writing onto Wattpad. Like I feel like I'm living out their dreams.
That is
Um,
such a good comparison. Yeah, and I love that. And it's definitely those teenage vibes. Now you said that you do have your sort of slightly stumpy your foot moment. And obviously I'm in the UK, so I grew up on Home and Away and Neighbours, and it did take me a bit back to it's Summer Bay High, isn't it? Particularly, I
oh,
think because it's you had the similar skirt. The skirt was a bit like that, and it just reminded me of Tiffany stomping around. So
I
I
actually got
loved
to be
it.
on Home and Away a few times when I was a teenager. So that was yeah, that's yeah, I actually had to wear like the uniform and
Yay!
everything.
I'm like, you're so cool now. You also get a good action scene at the beginning. There's a lot of running around in those
Oh my
first.
God. Yeah,
How
that
was
was
that?
really funny. When we were filming that, we were filming it out of school and I was just told like, okay, you're just gonna run from like here to here. And I was like, okay, how fast do you need me to go? Or like, do you need me to slow it down and then you can put up a like, oh, what's the deal here? Because also the way we were filming it was that it was just someone on a gimbal.
Mm.
And so they're having to two-arm it. And then if they're recording me, they're having to run backwards.
Wow.
So, or like, to the side of me. So I was also
Mm.
having to like gauge like how fast can this guy run? How fast can he run while holding the gimbal and getting a good shot? So we had to do quite a few different takes of just like kind of figuring out the proper speed, the camera angles while I'm like, going around like, corners, while I'm going downstairs. And there was just like one point where they then had all the guards chasing me. So we did a couple of shots of that. And then the one where they're like, okay, so we're going to be filming it from this angle. So you just kind of need to just keep running until you like it, just keep running down until we call cut. Anyway, I'm like, all right, cool, on it. And I sprint so fast that the people playing the guards weren't able to catch up to me, and I went so far that I wasn't unable to hear them when they called cut, and I just kept going. I was like, I didn't hear anything.
I love it. You were like
So
channeling Kathy Freeman. You were just off.
I can't, I just ran for it. Like I'm not a particularly I'm not a distance runner. I'm a sprinter in the sense that like I will go very, very fast and then I'm going to be absolutely puffed.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely did have to stretch before and after that, those couple of days where we did the running scenes. Um, And it's always very funny, just like running to a spot and then turning around and just like walking back and then running back to that spot. And there were a couple students just like watching there with their snacks, just being like, go girl. Thank you.
It looks really good though. I was just, it looks really fast. So I would just say,
I mean, I think I was just like channeling like, you know, in an action, like, you know, thinking, oh God, what's his name? Wow, I should not be forgetting his name. Action star guy. What's his name?
I don't know
Oh
what
my
you mean.
goodness, he married Nicole Kidman and then
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, that's it. Yeah. I was just trying to like channel that energy of just being like pump the arms.
It was
like
a bit.
just
You kept the straight arms, but you were better. You ran better than Tom.
I
Your leg
appreciate
action
that.
was more athletic. It was definitely.
Thank you.
I would rate you higher.
I'm definitely not a normal, like I'm not normally a runner or like much of a gym person. Like I'm the type of person who goes to the gym because like I'm just like, look, if the zombie apocalypse or the end of times come, I do want to be able to run away from things. Like I need to make sure the fitness is there just in case. Just in case.
That's what it's about, isn't it? Just having something that gives you that motivation. I love that. That's good.
Yeah.
I have to ask you about your co-star, Alpha Cassian William Stagg. How tall is he?
Oh,
Like,
so
is
tall.
he?
That end shot where face to face at the I was actually on a box because
surely they've somehow made you taller.
Yeah, they had to make me taller for that because I mean throughout that whole shoot, especially at the banquet, I was wearing my sneakers the whole time. They do have like a bit of a lift in them, like they're quite a thick-soled sneaker, but they were just so comfortable and like, you know, you couldn't see my shoes, so like stuff wearing like heels under that, especially in long film days, it's the worst. I always bring slippers to set, so like between shoots I can just like put my feet into something really comfortable. But yeah, no, he is incredibly tall, very sweet. We had a lot of fun on that set. And I think that was his second vertical that he'd worked on as well. And yeah, we just had a great time. Like honestly, I still chat with all of the people that I was of the actors that were in that show. We're actually in a group chat, just like, you know, sending memes and hanging out and catching up and everything. Like I've made friends from that set that I really adore. So. And honestly, I'm so proud of him. He's in Canada, I think, right now, shooting something else. And like, it's just so cool to see him just like working on a bunch of different projects. We miss him. He messages us like, you know, like being like, oh, I'm sad. Like, I'm sad that I can't like come and join, you know, this hangout or whatever. And we're just like, you're doing stuff. Like, have fun. We'll see you when we see you. But yeah, no, he's a great actor. Great fun to work with as well.
And I just have to say, so do you get that as a group then? Because obviously you put these things out there and you don't quite know how they land. And obviously this one's been doing really well. And, you know, it was like Heiress and, you know, the view numbers, because obviously Real Short put that on. And you're like, okay, it's a million, it's this. How is that just like wrapping your head around that? And kind of how do you talk about that kind of, those of you who've been on those projects, you know, kind of, you like in touch months later going, have you seen it's hit this amount?
Yeah, I mean, essentially that's kind of what it's like, where it's like, I'll sometimes just get like a message from like one of my co-stars just being like, oh, it's hit this like, you know, point. Oh, sorry, my hair's doing a little. That's the problem with the hair light, is that it will point out when you have flyaways. Yeah, so no, like, yeah, we'll like usually we'll kind of have a look and see like, you know, what where it's at and stuff like that. So it's like it's always really fun kind of seeing like what does well and like what the reaction kind of is. I mean, the only kind of real feedback we ever get is through comments like on say like TikTok or Instagram or stuff like that. So I mean, like we kind of only have the views to kind of go off, you know, as sort of like okay, that's how well it's doing. So yeah, I mean, like I wasn't sure if this was going to do that well, just only because I've know that there is a bunch of Wolf stuff like already out there, and I was like, I don't know if this one's just going to kind of fall under the radar because, you know, maybe it's already saturated. But it kind of, yeah, did, I guess, kind of similar to the Heiress Blacklisted Her Husband, where it was like, yeah, it was kind of part of an oversaturated genre already, but it kind of also still did really well, which was just really exciting and really like wholesome. Like, it's kind of like, oh, like this was definitely a project made with camaraderie and creativity and love. And so to see that kind of rewarded is just like, oh, that's amazing. And like, I hope I get to do it again.
Oh, I love that. I have to ask, costumes, because obviously anyone who goes on your Instagram account will see absolutely phenomenal, like insane, talented pictures of you. Well, basically you looking amazing, but
Thank
obviously
you.
sort of made up, with the cosplay. How does vertical costuming compare? I imagine it's easier because you're like,
Oh, yeah.
I've done cosplay. This is nothing to me.
I mean, the only thing that I would say is like a bit of a drag is when you're in ball gowns and you need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like having to like hoist it all up around you and then like sit side saddle slash like maybe like straddling the toilet just so you don't accidentally get anything on this dress
Yeah.
because you don't know if it's a rental or not. Uh, it's stressful. And you also don't want to like ask anyone like, hey, can you come into the cubicle with me and hold all of my layers of skirt? And then they're also usually quite hot as well. So there's also just like, I think while filming Eris, actually, this was during summer, and it was so hot when I was wearing that ball gown outside that I had to like just get like tissues just to like put them like up like around my skirt, like around my thighs, because like it was just like a heater inside there because I just had polyester like a tent around my legs, like no
Oh,
airflow,
yeah.
nothing. And it was just like radiating heat. And I'm just like, it's a sauna under my skirt. It is a sauna in here and I need something.
Oh,
But you have to act through that. You have to act through that. You have to,
yeah.
be turning to this person and delivering your line and then reacting and listening. All the while, you can feel like, drips just like going down your knees. And it's just like, ugh.
Thank you. Actually, because I interviewed Alex recently, and I think he must have been the same shoot because he was saying about being in a whole waistcoat suit jacket when it was really hot was not fun either.
Oh man, no, yeah, there are definitely. I mean, I feel for the guys. There's definitely like, I mean, getting them into like three-piece suits and inside on a hot day with no air conditioning running because that interferes with sound.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's like, yeah, it's absolutely brutal. There is definitely like, I do find that with the femme costumes, they do tend to be a bit more on the like, I can just take off a jacket kind of, and
Yeah.
then I'll be okay, or hoist all my skirts up around my waist so that I can like air out my legs. But generally, yeah, I do think that the guys get covered up usually a bunch more, but then also they do get to be usually a lot more naked, at least like
Mm.
I would say frequency wise than the femme actors have to, at least from what I've seen, or what I've been part of.
So the obvious thing it would seem to me is because you're making verticals in Australia and it's very hot, is that you have lots of beaches in Australia.
Yes.
We need the kind of the beach set vertical.
I know. Like,
Where
I'm surprised that
basically
we
you
haven't
can all
gone
wear
down like
summer
a.
clothes and not be in your
Yeah,
ball gowns and be much more appropriately dressed.
I know. I'm like, stop trying to pretend we're in Europe. This isn't Europe.
Um, yeah, I don't understand like why it needs, just because there's some other really one as well recently where like it's trying to make it out it's in the Hamptons, but you can clearly see it's like Australian number plates. It's like, let's just
I
lean into the
mean,
fact it's in Australia. Australia's awesome. Why are we not
well,
celebrating this?
it's actually quite funny because there are a bunch of places in Australia that do get filmed by like, major production studios for the US just because it is
Mm,
cheaper to film here due to tax breaks and stuff like that
mm,
that they get from the Australian government. Um, and so like it's possible, but it also does require like, I mean, what usually those studios are doing is that they're hiring location scouts and managers to
mm,
actually try and set them up, to look a certain way, and then they're also maybe using CGI and
mm.
SFX to try and also like achieve a certain look. So like it's possible to do that here. It's just the fact that I think because usually verticals are filmed on such a tight timeline that a lot of the pre-prod is super truncated, and then it kind of goes into production. And then post-production is, kind of just as long as it, as quick as it takes to really
Mm.
kind of just pump it out, edit it together, put in the sound and everything like that. So, and color grading and shit. So like there's a whole lot to it that could make it possible for it to, come across more as like, yeah, Malibu or the Hamptons or, New York or, whatever. It's possible. But I do think that it's also just like a reflection of the limitations in the time allocated for making that sort of stuff a bit more
Yeah.
genuine. Which I think like for me is kind of more just one of my more of the things like with verticals, like I think it's so good to have this industry. I think it really fills a gap between, your small indie student productions, like, little to no budget, and then your massive production houses like, your Warner Brothers, your HBO, your Disney. There needs to be something in the middle of any ecosystem. Because, if there's only this or that, you end up with a bunch of people who just don't have work because only, some people are getting, like, there's only a limited amount of jobs available. And because so much money is getting put into those projects, they're not necessarily able to make more projects. They're putting, more into just, single projects. And then, in the film industry now, we're seeing a lot of reboots and,
Mm.
sequels and remakes and stuff like that. And it's just because they want to be really cautious about where they're putting their money, because they want their investment to pay off. So I
Yeah.
think I kind of really like the way that Real Short's going about it, where it's just like, let's just see what happens. Let's put a bunch of, things, projects, productions together. We'll do like a bunch of different genres, bunch of different, like everything. We'll try anything.
Yeah.
Um, I like that. I think it also helps keep people in the, industry employed. A lot of the people that I'm working with on these sets, I mean, especially because in Australia it's such a small industry, a lot of the people that I'm working with on vertical sets are people who are also working on Disney sets, who are working on, HBO sets, who are working on, A24 sets. Um, and so it's not like it's super removed from the industry. It's actually just growing a different like branch, or kind of filling out the ecosystem, I guess, in a way to create more of a sustainable, to basically help like acting be a bit more of a sustainable job. Like if you are able to get into verticals, like you could make consistent money off it, and that's more than a lot of actors can say when it comes to trying to get into like big, feature films, with these big production houses,
Mm.
or not even getting paid at all with, student films.
Yeah. That's such a good way of explaining it, actually. Just saying that we need that in the ecosystem. And it's interesting because I've spoken to people in the UK and they say exactly the same, that there's nothing at the level that verticals come in.
Yeah.
And as you said, you get on-screen experience, don't you? Or, you're working on a set if you're with a
Oh,
camera.
absolutely.
And then also it comes out fast. So you've then got material to show people, because I've spoken to people who've obviously
Exactly.
done movies and they're like, it's still not come out. It was 3 years later. So I've
Yeah.
got this stuff, but I have nothing
I've got
that
friends
I
who have
can
done
show
student
people of look
films.
what I can do.
Yeah, I've got friends who have done student films who, and it hasn't come out in like 10 years. And it's like, I didn't get paid for that, and I've got nothing to show for it. And I put all that work into it. And that's like devastating. And also really true for a lot of actors. Like there are actors who have been part of huge productions, but then they get cut out of those huge
Mm.
productions. And so it's just like what I do like about verticals is like, yeah, it's silly. Yeah, it's like kind of lower stakes. Like, it's not trying to be, the next Interstellar, or, the next Inception, or,
Mm.
it's not trying to necessarily be cinema. Um, but it is creating the grounds for which smaller stories is more feasible. Like I think also like I'm seeing a lot of people who are part of the creative side wanting to write scripts. Like I'm seeing actors wanting to pitch their own scripts because I mean, in a way, it's kind of lowered the bar for entry of like being able to produce something like this, to produce a story, to produce a film. I think also partially it is due to the format itself. I think having a vertical frame, field of view allows for a lot of space and flexibility that having a more wider, a horizontal frame, you need to be more conscious of, because you need to be conscious of what's going to show up in that frame.
Yeah.
The backdrop, the extras, the scene, the mise en scène, like everything. You need to be aware of all of that. Whereas if you've got a more narrower field of view, a lot of those things you don't necessarily need to worry about as much. And that allows you to be super quick and flexible when it comes to shooting stuff. Like, I literally in Werewolf Princess, there's one shot that we filmed days later after the fact. We weren't even in the same location, but we had to replicate the backdrop
Yeah.
so that it looked like it matched the shot. And so all we did was we found a white wall. We got a table that had been covered with contact paper to look like wood, and it was
Yeah.
just in the background, like, just standing up on top of a chair, just like propped
Yeah.
up in the background, and we just filmed that shot and it worked perfectly. You couldn't even
I love
tell.
it. And I
And
love
it's just
that
like that.
kind of just creativity, because I
Yeah,
can see, I think when you're on that time crunch and you've got like no budget, you just have to come up with stuff. Whereas
yeah,
I could see if you're on
ingenuity.
something and you've got infinite budget, infinite time, that's several days. Oh, we could do this, we could do that. And it's much better sometimes, like, just make the decision. This will work. Let's go for it.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think also that happens when you've got so many people who are invested in it as well. Like
Okay.
when you're in those big studio productions, there's so much money riding on it that you have to make the correct decision, because the wrong
Mm,
decision could cost millions, thousands,
yeah.
whatever have you. And
Mm,
so I think with verticals, like the stakes are still high. I mean, like, obviously it's no life or death situation. No one's dying. We're not doctors. We're not nurses. We're not, brain scientists. We're not, rocket scientists either. Like, this isn't life or death. At the end of the day, we're dressing up, we're playing make believe, and that's the coolest thing ever. But, at the same time, uh, just being able to be like, hey, I think there was even a point where, oh yeah, actually, there's another one. So I had to peek out of a curtain to talk to Will in one of the scenes, and we were trying to rig up this whole thing with this curtain and everything, and I was just like, how about we just put it on a pole, and then instead of me having to get like undressed and everything, because like, they're worried about like, how am I gonna get dressed, blah, blah, timing, blah, blah. And I was just like, how about if I just peek my head around from the curtain, cover up my body, and just be like, hey, I'll see you outside in a second. And then that way I don't have to get changed. We
mm,
don't have to set up a whole curtain thing. We just need to get it like, for me in the frame to just peek
yeah.
my head around it. And that saves us like, an hour of setup, pack up, and like all that kind of stuff when, and then we could get it in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, and so, and also, I love the fact, I mean, maybe this is just my experience with the company that I've been working with, because I've been
Mm,
working with Nebula Productions now on most of the verticals I've done. And maybe it's, maybe they trust me, but they do allow for a collaborative creativity when it comes to problem solving. And that was also really rewarding as an experience to just be like, oh, not only am I kind of able to help, because like, I love to help. I love to be part of the
mm,
creative process as well. Like I want to know what everyone's doing. I want to understand what everyone's doing, because I want to appreciate the work that they're putting in as well.
mm,
Like if you're the lighter, the gaffer, the, first AD, the um camera assist, like anything. I want to understand it so that I can appreciate it. And so it's really nice to then be also invited to kind of be part of making it all work and come together and feel connecting and collaborative, which is just like possibly the best experience you could ever have. Especially because like on those big studios, like you can sometimes just feel lost. It's just a come in, do your thing, stand here, listen to what you're told, and then leave. And there's, you just kind of feel like more of a cog or a puppet, rather than like a creative collaborator,
yeah.
which is really fun, which is what I really appreciate about my experiences with verticals.
I can see that. I can see that that makes it more rewarding, that you're more part of the process. So you've been so kind and shared so much. Just can you tell us what you have coming up? Are there more projects we can look forward to seeing you in on any type of screen?
Okay, so at the moment, I'm actually working on editing my streams. So I'm looking into doing some stuff in the YouTube space. So creating some of my own content. I'm also looking into, so I'm still doing, so we just finished our Kickstarter for the next, for basically a long form version of the show that I'm on,
Wow.
to do a backstory on my character. So we've just finished the Kickstarter for that. So we'll be filming that, later this year. So our shooting will start, yeah, later this year. And I'm in the talks with some people overseas about doing some work there. So at this point in time, nothing super concrete or anything I can talk about due to NDA,
Oh,
but there are things in the works that are coming
yay.
out. So yeah, that's
That's
kind
all we
of
want to
where
know.
I'm at.
Basically, just we will be
Yeah.
able to see you on our screen because you're such
Yeah,
amazing
no, of
presence.
course. Of course. Like I mean, like I said, I've had this experience where I can't seem to escape and I don't want to anyway. So
And I'm just going to finish with one or two just very quick questions. Um, what is your current favourite TV show or film that you're binging? What's the current
I just
one or
finished watching Apple Cider Vinegar and I was really impressed. I was really impressed with her accent work. I think Australian is one of those accents that is a little difficult to kind of
um,
not go straight bogan.
yeah.
I think it's real easy to kind of, be like, oh yeah, g'day, mate, like kind of real get into that real broad Aussie kind of accent. But then I think sometimes people, especially, if they're not familiar with the differences between, say, like New Zealander, or even like South African, because I know that sometimes people
Mhm.
can confuse South African and Australian accents as well, which is super fascinating. But yeah, I think it's one of those accents that's quite difficult. So I was very impressed with that. And also just the story is also just like one of those ones where you're just like, I remember all these things happening, but like it's fascinating to kind of see it kind of laid out in more of a story format. And I really appreciated how they framed it as well. It was really interesting, really fun.
And then, yeah, just final question. Who are the actors and actresses you really rate? So the ones, they can be dead or alive, but the ones that you're like, want to watch everything they've been in.
I love um I love Anya Taylor-Joy. Love oh my God. I want to make sure I get her name correct. Uh Anna Ana Diamas. Yeah, Ana Diamas. Um love I was thinking that was it, but I'm just like, what if I've got it wrong? I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Ana Diamas. Um love man, there's so many. Meryl Streep. Um, I've got so much respect for actors who really can disappear into their roles. I
Yeah.
think part of that comes from like my cosplay background, where for me it was I want to be a chameleon. I want to look different. I want to use makeup and costume and like whatever's at my disposal as an actor in my body to kind of emulate something completely different. Because I think that's just I don't know. I think that's just kind of like what I've always enjoyed. I've always
Mm.
enjoyed theater. I've always enjoyed playing. Even when like I read books like, out loud or whatever, like I'll still put voices on. Just because like I guess it's just kind of like a natural part of my being. Like performance just is a part
Yeah.
of my expression. Um, so yeah, I guess I love actors who are really good at kind of hiding away in the roles that they play. Um, I think it's always really fun for me when, especially when I'm doing the show and all that kind of stuff, and I'm playing different characters, where people go, "Oh my God, I didn't even know that was full, or I didn't know that was Alessia," and it's just like, "Yes, I did it. I did the thing." And the running joke has been for a while now. People posting every time we've posted a new video, being like, "Why did you change the actress?" And it might just be something as simple that I just changed how I did my makeup that day. And that was enough for them to be like, you've changed her. Why'd you change her? Who's this new person? It's like, I've always been here.
I love that. That's so good. You've been absolutely amazing. I can't thank you enough for everything you shared and all your
No, thank you.
thoughts
It's
and
honestly just been
feedback.
really nice to talk with you. I feel like I've been talking a lot, but like I've really enjoyed talking with you.
So yeah, just huge thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you for your time.